Hello and welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. In front of me here we have a 2024 Tesla Model 3 Performance, importantly in multi-coat white. Now as of recent it's been really hard to find Model 3 Performances in different colors than Stealth Gray. The reason being, Stealth Gray is the free color for the Model 3 Performance, and any other color that you choose would put it over the $55,000 price cap for a $7,500 tax credit. But as of recently, Tesla has updated their website to essentially, if you purchase full self-driving for $8,000, you get a free paint option. So we're now starting to see more Model 3 Performances in white, ultra red, blue, black, and of course their newest paint, Quicksilver. In today's video, we're going to be doing a full paint evaluation of the multi-coat pearl white, one that I have actually owned on my 2021 Tesla Model 3 long range. So I'm super excited to see how the Fremont factory is producing these cars and if their paint quality is as bad as I've been seeing on some of these Stealth Gray Model 3s. So welcome back. Let's jump into it. Now this is going to be a reoccurring theme here on the Out of Spec Detailing channel, where we take our build quality analysis videos and separate them from our paint quality analysis videos. The reason being is I really want to inspect each color of each variation of the vehicles for said manufacturer. So for example, I've already done the paint quality analysis on the Stealth Gray 2024 Tesla Model 3 Performance, and in all honesty, I found a ton of issues with that paint. Now this is an upgraded paint from Tesla. I think it's either $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000 for this paint. I should have gone back and looked, but just know you are paying more for a multi-coat white here. So you would obviously expect it to be a little bit better, but that's what we're going to find out in today's paint evaluation video. Now for me, I think paint is extremely fascinating. I am a detailer, of course, so of course I am always working, paint correcting, polishing, ceramic coating paint. So for me, having a nice base to your vehicle of a good paint job really plays into a big role of enjoying the vehicle. And for those of you who say paint doesn't really matter, I don't care, my car's perfect, that's totally fine. But for those of you nerds who are like me, who actually really care, and those that email me with all of these questions of, hey, I just got a new Model 3, it has paint bubbles, it has a ton of dust nibs, what do I do with this thing? My bumpers don't match. This is what these videos are meant to do, is showcase what's going on so that when you guys go pick up your brand new car, you can go look at the vehicle, evaluate it, and decide, is this a car I want to take home, or does it have some serious imperfections I'm not willing to live with? So that's who this video is for. Now these videos do get quite long. We go in depth. These are not 10-minute videos. These videos are really meant so I can show you as a professional detailer what kind of imperfections are in new vehicles. Now we heavily focus on Tesla a lot because a lot of people have Teslas. A lot of people bring them in for detail. So this is going to be a reoccurring theme that pretty much all the new vehicles you see in here, we're going to do still build quality evaluations, but paint evaluations on every different color because I'm curious to see the differences. It's funny, a lot of people think paint is just paint, but it's wildly different from manufacturer to even different cars. I've had some Stealth Gray Model 3 Performances that I was actually quite blown away with the paint. And as of recently, these cars are coming in looking like they have been painted out in a field. There's dust nibs everywhere, there's sanding marks everywhere, the texturing has been quite bad, so I'm really anxious to see how this one actually is. Now of course, I have a lot of experience with pearl multi-coat white. It's one of my favorite colors on Tesla. It's a very crisp white color with a very nice pearl effect. One thing that I noticed on my car is it didn't have a ton of imperfections. All of these new Model 3s are coming out of the Fremont factory, including this one here. Mine was as well. I was actually pretty impressed with the paint, except for the fact that the bumpers didn't match. So this video is going to go in the way of what we're going to do is look for all the imperfections. That is dust nibs, sanding marks, severe scratches. There's a few that I know that are on Model 3, so I'll be curious to see if this one has it. I'm not going to point out every single scratch. This car has 1,100 miles on it. The customers had it for a few weeks, so I can't put all the blame for every little scratch on Tesla, so I'm not going to point those out. I hope that makes sense. If it was a fresh car that literally just drove here from the delivery center, I would talk about every single one of those. Now, there already are some areas I can tell were from the delivery center, so I will point those out. But what I really want to see here is, how do these cars come out of the factory? So imperfections is one. The next thing I want to look at is texturing of orange peel, especially between panels. I'm not the biggest proponent for having super flat, no orange peel paint. It's just not realistic on, a heavily produced vehicle like this. Actually, a lot of manufacturers intentionally put orange peel in there so that the paint doesn't get completely scratched up. And yeah, it's kind of an interesting thought there. What I've been seeing on Model 3s as of recent is some panels are really good, some panels are really bad. Austin built Model Ys have seen a ton of issues with very odd, kind of this almost 3D printed looking orange peel on different panels. It's been very strange, so I'm trying to dig into this. Next thing we're going to look at is coloration. Now, I talked about this with my Model 3 long range, that my bumpers didn't match the actual pearl white paint on the metal surfaces. Now, every single time I post this video, well, plastic bumpers are prepped different than metal. I understand that, but the difference is the actual metallic in a lot of these. It's really weird to me how you can have the same paint, but the bumpers either have a different color metallic, like they'll be brighter, i.e. this one, than the actual metallic on the rest of the vehicle, or you'll even have different size or different volume of those metallic flakes. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And then lastly, what we're going to do is do some paint readings. Now, what we do with paint readings is measure the thickness of the actual paint. So within there, we're measuring the clear coat, your color coat, your base coat, your primer. It's basically sending from a metal tip on top of the clear coat a signal down to the metal, bouncing it back up, and that meter is reading that in between. Now, Tesla can be all over the place with this. My white 3 long range had like 7 or 8 mils of paint, which is almost double what the industry average is. Typically, in a professional detailing sense, we see between 4 to 6 mils. That's the average of a thickness of a sheet of printer paper. So do understand that. It is quite thin when you consider all of those layers in there. Now, the whole point behind this is we want to have enough paint to not only do paint correction and remove scratches, but down the road have enough paint to continually polish the vehicle without having super thin paint that you can't do anything to. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I'll be anxious to see what this looks like as far as thickness. I'm expecting it to be thick. I've already done a few, and I think you'll be quite surprised, so stay tuned for that. With the paint thickness readings, this plays into our evaluation of quality as well, is seeing how consistent paint is. So ideally, if I take a reading on the hood and it say it's 5 mils, I want to see 5 mils or plus or minus half a mil all around the vehicle. I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, that is not the case, even with high-end manufacturers. So this is going to be a long one. Understand that. I hope you guys enjoy this. As you guys can see, I have completed my paint evaluation, and every single one of these green tape marks are factory imperfections in the paint. Now, I do want to caveat this in saying, I need you guys to understand, when I'm doing these videos, I'm not trying to bash Tesla. I'm not trying to bash whatever car's vehicle is in here. I look at these objectively. That is one of the great things about detailing. It is either there or it's not. There either is a dust nib there or there's not. There's no in between. This is not my opinion. I will show you as many of these as I think is actually reasonable on the entire vehicle. So do understand, my eyes are critical. The whole point of these videos is to be nitpicky, to show you what a professional detailer of 10 plus years actually finds in paint. Is it more than the average person walking around a car? Yes, quite literally my job is to sit here, locate imperfections, figure out how to fix them, and properly fix them. So my eyes gravitate towards this stuff. Now, I do have to say, does this make a difference in how I feel about a car? Actually, it does. On my Model 3 Performance, I love the car. There is so many great things Tesla does with that car. The technology, the power, the performance, just the ergonomics, interior comfort, and things like that. But one thing that I think Tesla really struggles with is when you start competing with big brands like BMW and Porsche and others like that in terms of quality. If you are someone who absolutely cares about paint quality and has the budget to afford something like a Taycan, which I guess could be a competitor to a Model 3, that may be the route you want to go. But it's very pros and cons, especially at this price point. I have said, I think the new Model 3 Performance is the buy of the decade. All that you're getting for this car, sub $55,000 with federal tax credit, with state incentives. It's insane the amount of car you can get, but I think there's still things that need to be improved. So my area of expertise is paint, detailing, imperfections, and I want to show not only viewers this, but if the manufacturers watch this, maybe they can improve it and everybody can be happier. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into our paint evaluation. Time to jump into the evaluation now. Now, as you can see, all the green tape marks on here are really honestly just dust nibs. There's not a ton of sanding marks. So I'm filming this after I've actually completed the video, but I did lie to you guys slightly. There are some sanding marks here. So I'm working on paint correction. See that dull spot right there in that third light, and the other one right there. Those are two sanding marks right on the hood that I completely missed. This is the really tricky thing about white paint and why it's really important to properly inspect it. So, of course, I'll get those compounded, polished out. Those will be completely gone. Back to the video. Huge scratches or imperfections like that, but a lot of this is just little dust marks in here. And the real issue with dust nibs is there are ways to remove them depending on where they lay in essentially the paint. So if they're underneath the white layer, that can be really challenging to get. If they're in the clear coat, 9 times out of 10, you can sand those down and you can actually get the dust nib out. The only issue with that is if you have a lot of orange peel like the Model 3 does here, when you go to sand that one little spot and don't really blend it out, you'll basically see this little circle here where the paint is perfectly smooth and you have orange peel all around it. So I'll run you through all of that. Now I did go through here and there are probably 5 or 6 marks that Tesla actually went in, they wet sanded, but they actually properly polished them out. So that's a step in the right direction. I'm glad to see that they're not just leaving sanding marks left over. That's not good for anybody. I don't like to see that. Now again, the whole idea with paint quality is you shouldn't have this kind of stuff. Now, even manufacturers like Porsche that are almost perfect, you will still see dust nibs here and there. Stuff does happen. They cannot be 100% perfect. So I'm a realist in that. But let's start walking around this thing and just show you what we got here. Now, first off here on the hood is going to give us a prime example. So what I want you to look is right in between those light bars. Can you see that little mark as I move it? That, my friends, is a dust nib. Now what you'll notice to the left and the right of it is orange peel, but right in the middle, right above and below that dust nib is almost smooth paint. So that's what it looks like when you actually wet sand paint. Now this is really interesting because you can actually see the dust nib is gone, but it actually creates this little crater in it once you remove that. So that's why 9 times out of 10 with dust nibs, what I prefer to do, it depends again if they are in the white or the clear coat, I prefer to leave them alone because I would rather not have this kind of pinhole in here and show it, because that looks worse to me in my opinion. Now the hood definitely has quite a few imperfections. Now just my eyes, I can stand all the way back here and I can actually see imperfections up here in kind of that striped area. Maybe you guys can pick those up on camera. I can see it from 10 feet away. Now again, that's my eyes. I look for imperfections quite literally for a living. But just walking around here, it's a little tricky to do this, but I have to get the light in the right position. Dust nib there. You can see a dust nib right here on the corner. Got to move the light right there. You can see another one where my finger was. There's a little guy right there. I mean, they are absolutely everywhere. Again, those are just little pieces of dust that are falling into the paint at some point during the painting process. So what you'll notice, the highest amount of concentration of dust nibs are where? Of course, on the upward facing panels. You will notice a few down here, but realistically, most of those are on the top section, meaning that I don't know if their environment's not the cleanest. I know Fremont was an old factory retrofitted to now produce Teslas and could be running into some issues there. But I've also been down to the Giga Texas factory, and the entire parking lot there is dirt. There's dirt absolutely everywhere. And Austin built Model Ys, I've seen a ton of dust nibs in the paint, which makes a lot of sense. It's in a very nasty, dirty area. So moving on here. Now again, I'm just going to point some of these out. You can see another little dust nib there. I'm going to try and get these on camera as best I can. The camera really has a hard time focusing. Just up here, you can see some, boom, right in there. They just catch your eye, and once you see them, man, do you really see them. This whole area up here, yeah, one right there, you can see it in the light. Another big one right there. Another one right there. They're just kind of everywhere in all honesty. Yeah, you can see one right below that piece of tape there. So again, these are not things that I really like to see, but they're definitely there. So over here on the side of the door, it's having an impossible time focusing. Do apologize. Doing my best to do all this. Cameras really struggle right there. You can kind of see it right there in the middle of it. Another little dust nib here on the door handle. Boom, you can see it right there. Actually just noticed one more right there as well. Again, my eyes literally just go directly to this. So for me as a detailer, it does get frustrating looking at cars because the first thing I look for, imperfections. We have a few down here. Let me see. Yep, right above that tape line, I can show you that. You can see those two quite big ones right there. Now this is really interesting on Model 3. They've always done this. They've done this more like textured material that goes on here. Hopefully you can see it down here. That's to help prevent from rock chips. So glad to see they're still doing that, but definitely got a little bit there. Not the end of the world, but definitely want to point those out. Now here is where we get into an explosion of dust nibs. I don't know if somebody was dirty who walked in the paint booth or what happened in this particular area, but it is pretty bad. So here, dust nib. This one is actually the same as that front one. You can see it actually missing there. And you can also see texture up here, nice and smooth here, more texture. This is a little piece of lint. So this one's in the clear coat. You might be able to get that out, but again, you run the risk of going through the clear. I never want to run the risk of, trying to remove an imperfection like that and then going in there, taking too much paint off, burning through the paint. That's not what we're trying to do here. So this all really plays into the story again. Once we start taking paint readings, let's say this area, if it's at like 3 mils, I can't go in there and properly wet sand that. But if it's at 6 mils, okay, I'm gonna go in there, wet sand and hammer that. So that's why this really all comes to be one cohesive story here. Again, looking up here, big dust nib there, big dust nib. Get the light right. It won't focus. Well, maybe some of you saw that there. This one is another one of those little marks. So again, watch as I move that light. You can really see it right there. See how smooth that is? And that's a little pinhole in there. So they took the actual dust nib out, but it goes orange peel, perfectly smooth. So that's an area they actually sanded, and if I shine my light on this, you can see they actually polished it out really nice. There's nothing left over. But if you just look at the light over here, very orange peel, and then perfectly round. So that's what it actually looks like when you go in there completely wet sand something. It actually looks nice, so you get rid of all of the orange peel. Moving along here, another little dot there, another dot there. Up here, where am I seeing one? Don't see one. Oh, there we go. Yep, 2 little ones right there in the bars of the light. There's another area right here that has been wet sanded. You can slightly see it. Another little dust nib there. Just dust nibs for days. One there as well. And there. I don't know. I'm really curious. You know, you guys need to let me know in the comment section below. Does this annoy you? Because to me, it just shows that Tesla doesn't really care. I mean, they're definitely not seeing all of this stuff and they're not improving this. And I really feel like a lot of the cars that came out, I don't know, 2 years ago were actually really well painted. And some of these, I don't know if it's the new refresh, the new bumpers, it's the same body. I can't quite understand why the paint has all of a sudden gotten a lot worse. It just, yeah, seems crazy to me. Another little imperfection here. This one's a little different. I don't know if you can see that in the paint. That's a little strange going on there. You can literally see here on the trunk, there is a huge protrusion from the paint. That's a little strange to say the least. Up here, again, we have another little piece of actual lint in there. Funny enough, I was working on a Lamborghini Huracan in a Rancio Borealis. On the rear quarter panel of that car, there was a hair, probably the size of this, in the actual clear coat. I could not believe they left that there. You know, we're talking $300,000+ vehicle like that. And they clearly went in, tried to wet sand it and left that there. So this is not only a Tesla thing. This happens even when you're paying substantial money. But I will tell you the paint job quality on that, a lot more paint, a lot less imperfections. But then to leave a piece of hair in there was just like, are you serious? It was pretty crazy. Down here, we have the very traditional Model 3 Performance scratch. All of them have this same scratch here. So let me show you. Right there. Got to get the light right. You can see it kind of right in that particular area. Very hard on white. I can see it in person, but it's very hard to film. Right there, we've got some scratching as well. All Model 3 Performances have that. Not exactly sure why, but definitely wanted to showcase that. Over here, we've got two little dust nibs here. Up here, we've got another dust nib. On top of the hood, there's just, or not hood, the rear trunk lid here. You can see all sorts of little imperfections, dust nibs. You can see that one to the right of that green tape closest to us, to the left of that middle one. And then I believe there's two up there. It's pretty wild, to say the least. Up here, this one's a little tricky to show. Let me zoom in here. This one has two of them right there. This one, yep, these are actually black dots, so very similar to what you saw before. See those? You can really see their little craters, but you can also tell, yet again, if you've been watching this video, they actually sanded that area. See how that disc of perfectly smooth paint is? And then you can see those little craters in there. Just so wild to me. Now, moving over here to the side, we've got some other little dust nibs, and here, of course, and then back here on the rear trunk. Let's kind of open this up, get the angle a little bit better. On this one, you can see boom, boom. This one to the left right there, this one up here. I mean, I can just go through and show you every single one of these, but I think you guys are getting the idea. There are dust nibs absolutely everywhere. You can physically see that one sitting in the paint there. It's just, it's really insane to me that they put a car out like this. I don't know, that's just my personal opinion. I think it's pretty darn wild. Over here, you can see another one of those areas. Smooth paint, and you can see all the orange peel texture around it. And then you can see the huge dust nib there with the dust nib still intact. So there's actually a piece of dust in there. This one's one of the worst that I've seen on here. I don't know if I can get the light right. Look how large that speck of dust is in there. And it's just encapsulated into the clear coat. Again, over here, boom, another one right there. So quite a bit. I mean, I don't even know how many that is now. Maybe one of you wants to count that, but quite a few imperfections in here. And I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing. I mean, I just go through one right here. Boom. My eyes just look at the paint and I can see these from every single angle. Now, a lot of that, of course, is this lighting setup I have in here, but of course, that's why I designed it to be like that. Talking texture, orange peel, coloration. Let's just start here on the rear bumper because this is where you see the worst orange peel on here. It is pretty bad, to be honest. Very dull compared to up here. I mean, that's pretty reasonable. That's what I see. You know, most manufacturers look pretty much like that. Let me zoom in here so you can get more of an idea. I mean, that is not very good, to be honest. But then up here, I would say pretty reasonable. You can just see how the light bends and catches those imperfections. And then you start to see like that area there on the left where it almost looks like dents. Those are basically, they're fasteners in there where they sit. And it's pretty strange when you actually see those. You can really see them just like that. So I would say this doesn't look the greatest. What about coloration here? So if I look up here and here, to me, this is brighter white. And I think you can kind of see that on camera. Now, I won't say that this one's terribly bad. It takes a very keen eye to see this. But again, when you look at the metallic here, the metallic is literally different. This has more of a powdery white, and that's very similar to what I've been seeing as of recently on these things. So moving from here over to here, it looks pretty decent. But a lot of the issues that they run into is metallic has to be laid in one single way. And if it's inverted, like on a bumper or something like this, you can actually see that they're different colors. So that could definitely be what's going on. Now let's check back here. I would say these look pretty decent, but again, remember this is a different piece from this. So honestly, not too terribly bad there. This still does look a little like 1 or 2 shades brighter white to me. I don't know how much the camera actually picks up on that. As far as orange peel, this has the same Model 3 issue that they all have, where this, I call these the like little horns here. They have pretty severe orange peel in this area. Then you go over here and it looks a lot better. This one's not as bad as I've seen, but you can definitely tell a difference on the right side versus the left. And honestly, do you guys see a difference in color there? Because I kind of do. This almost looks a little bit darker than that. I don't know. Maybe it's just the angle there. It's hard to tell. Those look pretty close to me. You can see some scratches in there. That'll all be things we're, fixing up. One thing I didn't talk about, imperfections. Like always, these are completely thrashed and destroyed. So we'll get those compounded and polished in here. Not a big deal. I do think quite a few of those little dust nibs in here will actually start to come out a little bit with paint correction. We'll kind of see even with a little orange peel, doing a little bit heavier compounding will start to take the orange peel down. So especially in areas like this, it will help. It's not going to do the same as basically sanding, but it will help a little bit. So texturing on this side actually looks decent, I would say, side to side. So the left side's basically worse. I don't know. You guys be the judge there. I wouldn't say it's overly bad. Check out this bumper on this side. Yeah, definitely some orange peel there. Can definitely see coloration difference. Again, these lights are really meant to showcase all of that. This to me still looks powdery white, and that's a little bit more yellow. I really think you can see that there, at least in person I can. Moving down the side of the car, honestly, all looks very Tesla to me. Has a decent amount of orange peel. Nothing really stands out to me here. I would say this fender looks pretty decent, especially compared to the doors back here. But again, lots of orange peel. If you're one of those who cares about it, you'd need to have your car fully wet sanded. Again, making this story again, you need to have enough clear coat to do that. And 9 times out of 10, cars like this, between 4 to 6 mils, that's really pushing the limit of actually sanding the cars down and leaving enough paint for later on. Now let's quickly look here at the bumper. Front bumper, again, I would say more powdery white, more yellow. That's just my kind of thinking here. I definitely get this at different angles. Some angles it looks okay. Again, I really think it's down to how the metallic is put on these cars. I do understand that. Now you will see in this kind of bumper horn here quite a bit of texturing up here compared to the paint. I can definitely see a color difference there. I don't know. Let me know if you can. The bumper looks definitely crisper white in my impression. Up here, same thing going on. This looks brighter white than here. I don't know how to show you guys this any better, but that's what I see. Another little dust nib there. Yeah, to me it's just more powdery white. I don't know. That's the only way I can put it. I won't say this is as bad as some of the stealth gray ones as of recently. I've seen a lot of people posting Quicksilver ones and the bumpers look a completely different shade of silver. So I don't know. We'll see once one's in here. Same thing on this side. Yep, I would say color matching. Still not perfect there. I don't know. What do you guys think? Texturing on this front bumper, yeah, I would say is okay. Definitely a little worse than the actual paint. What I did notice though is this section here looks very dull to me. Definitely compare this to over here. You can really see the texture difference and it doesn't have that bright crisp white into it. So definitely want to work down on this. It seems like more towards you get the headlight, it gets a little bit worse. And then the farther back you get, this is actually looking pretty normal and common, but I definitely noted this. I mean, especially looking in this particular area here, you can really see how dull that looks. It almost makes the camera not be able to focus or looks like it's not focusing. Down this side, I'd say all is pretty well. There is one area that's pretty strange on this car though, to be honest. So let me pop this open here. And if you look at this, look at the texture in this. First off, huge dust nib right there, but this almost looks like it's spray painted. And this is not normally how Tesla does things. These door panels or inner door sills are normally pretty glossy white. Let me put a light on this. Maybe you guys can see it a little bit better. See how fuzzy that light looks? Where over here it's a little bit more clear. Yeah, it's definitely weird. And what's really strange to me is you can see it on this ridge here, how this is a lot glossier and shinier than this is. This is very dulled out. I wonder if they had to repaint this and it was done by hand. I see kind of some down here as well, but this inner door sill here actually looks pretty good. So I just want to compare this to the other side quickly. Let's jump over here. Let's pop this side open. Ooh, this side's actually the same way. I haven't even looked at this yet. You can see how dull that texturing looks there. That is really, really strange. What is going on? Huh, yeah, even down here, same thing. Look at these lights, you can see it. It just looks very dull. So, are the front doors like that too? No, front doors are nice and glossy like they should be. So something weird happened with the rear doors here. They almost looked like they, were almost spray painted. Pretty wild. So I would say paint evaluation so far. Yeah, I mean, not great, to be honest. Seeing this many imperfections is never, as a professional detailer, what I want to see. I am glad to see there aren't just sanding marks sitting everywhere. I do think, okay, that's slight improvement from what I've seen from the stealth gray ones. Again, just remembering this is a case of one. I would say the texturing in certain areas is pretty bad. This bumper, to me, this rear bumper looks really rough. I mean, yeah, not looking great there. Just looks dull. It doesn't look like it was properly painted. That's my impression of this. The rest of the car, honestly, as far as texturing, looks okay. Those typical horns, as I call them here, need some improvement there. I'm sure we'll see a difference doing paint readings there towards the middle of the hood. So I think next, let's get into paint readings, paint consistency, and then we'll wrap this video up. Now we move to our paint meter. Again, what I'm looking for here is between 4 to 6 mils, but I also want to see consistency. Around 4 mils is the average of a thickness of a sheet of printer paper, so quite thin. Understand what this tool is doing on this metal tip here. It is sending a signal through the paint to the metal, sending a signal back up. This machine has been fully calibrated. We are not going to get the absolute exact measurement. I would say this is within +1 or -2%. I think it's pretty reasonable. This gives us a good rough idea, but understand it may be slightly variations. So let's take some measurements here. 439. 50, 428. So I'm going to tell you already immediately, way less paint that was on my 3 long range. I wish I still had it here so I could show you the difference. Every time I would throw a paint meter on that thing, it would between 7 and 9 mils of paint. Had a lot more paint, again, ideally because of the pearl multi-coat white. Maybe Tesla found a way to save some money, which they seem to be doing a lot, not put as many layers on there, which is pretty indicative here. So let's go in the center of the trunk, 623, and then this area, 403, 410. Okay, so about 2 mils difference there, not ideal. 632 over here, 343 over there. Huge differences. That is not what we want to see at all. That is really not ideal. So again, this area that has a lot of texturing, having only 3.43 mils, I would not go in there and try and remove the orange peel texturing. If it had 6 mils, okay, yeah, you could probably hand sand that, go, 2500 grit, wet sand it, polish it out, it'd be totally good to go. But yeah, that's a little too low. Let's come back here, 518. 462, 514, 497. So that's pretty consistent throughout there, I would say. That's very reasonable down here. But the center of the rear trunk to over here, that's no bueno. Not happy with that. Let's come over here, 487, 5, 534. So I'd say that's totally reasonable. That is within my specs of what I like to see on any given car. Plus or minus half a mil, maybe 3/4 of a mil, I think is totally reasonable for a mass-produced vehicle. 559 there. 509. So the doors actually look pretty decent. Ooh, did you see that? 391. Okay, that was a little low. Why is that so low? Let's try down here. And this one's 551. So huge difference door to door on that bottom sill there. I don't know. Tesla things, folks. And I say Tesla things, this is a lot of manufacturers that really struggle with this. This area was that weird textured area. So yeah, I mean, it's not all over the place, except for the rear trunk, which seems to be every single Model 3. I'm not sure why those little areas are so poorly painted there or have such thin paint and a lot of orange peel. 640, I think that's the biggest we've had. Five on the nose, almost 5 on the nose. So yeah, I'm seeing some good things here. I really am. I mean, it's not all bad here. There are some areas that, like, a single door is reasonably consistent, and they're reasonably consistent to each other. It's those weird areas like this that just not really thrilled with that, to be honest. 452 there. So they've definitely changed this paint quite a bit. So I think we have enough information to give you my final verdict on the Model 3 Performance painted in multi-coat pearl white. So let me give you my final thoughts here on the paint quality of the Model 3 Performance in white. Honestly, not surprised. It's definitely not amazing. It is better, I've been seeing, than the Stealth Grays. Now again, sample size of 1 here, I can't make that broad statement, but this particular car does seem better than, the last 5 or 6 Stealth Gray Performances I've seen here in the shop. So that's good. Do I think this is good enough to really ship out of the factory? I don't. I mean, to me, the dust nibs are pretty unexcusable. It seems to me like they don't have their paint booth dialed in. It seems like it has a lot of contamination in it. And it seems to me like they don't really have quality control that actually goes through here. I mean, they do in certain spots, which is weird to me. So it's like we have, half a dozen spots that they went in here, sanded out, some of those dust nibs, but then other ones they just completely leave alone. So there's some level of it, but I understand they're mass produced producing these cars. This is the hard part with doing this. Is I understand these cars can't be 100% perfect. They're making thousands of them every single week, let alone month, let alone year. I do understand that, but I do think other manufacturers, even you take a Toyota for example, in my opinion, does have better paint than this. I just had a Toyota Supra in here, which is of course made in Austria, but the paint on that was leagues above this. I mean, we still had some bumpers not matching and things like that. Okay, but there's not dust in your paint everywhere. I mean, that to me, again, just very inexcusable. The hard part with this is the Model 3 is such an easy car for me to recommend. You guys know I work with out of spec, of course. We recommend the Model 3 to a lot of people. All the convenience, the infotainment, the app integration, how comfortable, how efficient this car is, the performance you get, the charging infrastructure you get. There's a lot of things to love here, and that's why I've owned 2 Model 3s and why I will own more Model 3s or even other Teslas in the future, because I do appreciate that aspect, but I'd really like to see them turn that dial up. And maybe I just answered that question for myself. Why does Tesla paint cars like this? Because people are still willing to pick them up. So that's my thoughts and feelings on the new Model 3 Performance in white. Let me know what you guys think. Is this acceptable to ship a car out like this? I don't know. You be the judge. Thanks so much for watching another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. The video after this will be doing a full in-depth paint correction, polish, ceramic coating, absolutely everything on this car. If you're interested in that, stay tuned. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.